Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to this Smart Grids and Clean Power Conference, our third edition. I'm Justin Hayward of CIR Strategy. I'm fascinated by this question of smart grids and clean power, and I think it's a very complex one. And we may, during the course of today, notice an elephant in the room, for example. We may see the horse put before the cart, and indeed we may see the tail wagging the dog. In the first session we may have the cat amongst the pigeons, but overall it's a very interesting chicken and egg problem. I just wanted to get almost the musicians of Bremen in the first few words. But I'd like just to hand over to my colleague Mike McCreary to introduce the Chairman and the rest of the day. Thanks very much.
And I'd now like to hand over to our Chair of the day, Professor Jim Skeer. Jim is the Research Director at the UKERC and will be responsible for keeping the delegates and the speakers under control. So with no more ado, Jim.
Okay, thanks very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks to the organisers for inviting me to chair this day. I mean, as I say, I've got two roles. My main role is Research Director of the UK Energy Research Centre, which takes a systems approach to UK energy futures, and is also charged with trying to facilitate all of the university-based energy research in the UK. As I say, the other hat that I wear is I'm a member of the Committee on Climate Change that produces challenging recommendations on carbon budgets for the government, which is an interesting issue. Now, just a few remarks at the beginning before we kick off. I don't know if any of you have seen, but the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is in trouble again because of allegations in the press that Greenpeace may have effectively drafted some of the key conclusions from its recent report on renewable energy. Now, I was able to see all the drafts of that report as it went through, and one of the chapters in its earlier draft contained this very interesting footnote, and this is how it went. It said, "The term smart grid is often used to refer to this mixture of new technologies, meaning electrical and communications technologies. It is not used here because the term is ill-defined and not scientifically grounded." Now, these drafts have to go around the various governments that are involved in IPCC, and when this hit the US Department of Energy, and in particular the Smart Grids Division that employs 200 people, the wrath was mighty to behold. And using that combination of velvet glove and iron fist that only the US State Department can exercise, you will find that this footnote no longer appears in the published version of the IPCC report. Now, the term may be ill-defined, it may be not scientifically well-grounded, but I think the kind of attendance that we've got here today illustrates that it is rather becoming commercially well-grounded and well-grounded in the policy world, and I think that's the important feature going forward. I think one of the questions, for traditional players in the energy sector, you can almost see this as a useful extension, a refinement of the existing ways of doing things. But for some of the other players coming into the market, it could be something rather more dramatic in terms of change. And then I want to just step back a bit and say, what are the drivers around this? And for the UK, certainly, one of the big drivers is a big central theme around the decarbonisation of the electricity sector and the electrification of other parts of the energy economy. The government's plan is that electricity should be substantially decarbonised during the 2020s, and that could involve nuclear power, carbon capture and storage, but also lots more renewable energy, which is, of course, intermittent and poses new challenges for the electricity sector. And if we move to a state where we are moving towards heat pumps in the heating sector, battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles, it really changes the very nature of the electricity markets in which you will be operating. And at that point, a more intelligent interaction between consumers and suppliers is going to be absolutely critical. And I should say, it's not just climate change policy that needs to drive this, especially if you look to the US. The question of security of supply is critical. Greater use of heat pumps will take gas out of the energy markets, and greater use of electric vehicles will take oil out. And all of these will actually have benefits in terms of security of supply. Now, I think to get this interaction, this new sort of vision going, I think there are a few things that are needed. And I think it's probably well illustrated by the particular papers that we're going to hear today. We need a vision for where we're going. We need attention to standards and regulation that are needed to hold it together. And we need new skills and competences coming in from the perspective of the energy sector. The challenge is going to be integrating different technologies together, but it's also going to be integrating different commercial cultures and ways of doing things. And I think that factor is also critical. So the sessions we've got on structure and design later in the morning and measurement and control in the afternoon, I think are going to illustrate and fill out these kinds of challenges. And I think one of the other things that we have certainly picked up is that there is this big difference perhaps in the vision of where things might go. Is it just giving consumers better information and more displays, or is it about creating more possibilities which will form a kind of innovation playground, a place where really new ideas about business services can emerge? And I think one other factor I'd flag up is the issue there's going to be a global market in these technologies, and what we do in individual countries will affect the capacity to be players in these wider global markets. Now, I'll just finish off with a little advertisement, because the UK Energy Research Centre obviously has an interest in this area. Our energy supply theme is doing lots of detailed technical work, modelling distribution networks under different configurations of technologies. And in fact, they were running a workshop yesterday afternoon in London at the invitation of DEC on these kind of subjects. But we've also issued a call for proposals, which is now closed, on a new project which would be looking at the social, policy and technical issues and how they interact, developing different scenarios for the way in which smart grids might evolve in the UK. So we have a lot of interest in the topic, and I think this debate is going to run for a very long time. And there are some critical decisions looming, I think, in the UK, but I doubt very much whether that closes the debate essentially forever. Now, I should say, because I'm research director overall, I'm one of these dilettante energy generalists, so one of my motivations for accepting to chair today was to come here and learn from the people who are actually going to give the presentations.